Are you a self-centered asshat? Hmm. Interesting question, huh? I guess in order to be able to know if you are or aren't one, you kind of have to know the definition of what one is. Now, self-centered is self-explanatory. Asshat, I'll let you to figure out on your own. If you look back over the past few decades and you look at the movies and you look at the psychological pressures in the medical areas, and if you look at rock music, you see where we've gone through a very large portion of potential conditioning, which pretty much suggested everybody for themselves. Now, there's a difference between people being self-sufficient. Okay, that's a good thing for everybody to strive for. Okay, to be able to take care of yourself as much as one can, because then that way, you don't have to rely on so many other people in order to be able to do what is usually better if you can do yourself. But it presents another potential extreme. And in other videos, I've already spoken about this extremist uh, conditioning that seems to happen. The whole Republican versus Democrat, they're both at the opposite ends of an extreme, which makes them extremist positions. Same thing with liberal versus conservative. Again, two extreme points on an ideology line. So it almost seems like with all this conditioning and this, I'm going to get mine through rap music, the whole you are a special individual and similar things have kind of created what seems to be in a society that largely most people pretty much don't give too much of a jack shit about anything that's not directly happening to them. And these are the things that I attribute that to because of that conditioning over the course of 10, 20 year time segments that they pull this shit. And this is that little nudge that they're constantly doing in order to try to mold and create a society of their ideologies as opposed to what we the people might choose to make our own society. This is their manipulation and their twist and distortion. So, I mean, everybody is so engrossed in their own, and there's other things that go into that as well. There's different controlled, orchestrated events that end up helping push this stuff along as well. So, in 2008 would have been the first time that we experienced the banking issues that we experienced. And that created a circumstance and a situation where, people are struggling. So again, they become more and more drawn inward, more and more, their circle of attention diminishes. With the more fear and the more struggle in oneself in order to try to exist, live, survive, the attention span circle shrinks and diminishes because people are so stuck in fear and the struggle that they're consumed by these uh, very basic, real, honest needs. The need of being able to provide a roof over your head, being able to clothe and keep yourself warm, food. Okay, it then becomes about the essentials with little ability for people to think much beyond that. Um, Psychology identifies this as like a hierarchy of needs, and it suggests that there's a certain pyramid, and I can't remember off the top of my head at this point in time exactly what the technical terminology for this is, nor can I remember all of the steps. But the basic premise of it is that people are forced to focus on the actual survival based instinct needs before they can address the larger societal implications of things. Okay? So all this is a combination. It's not only the conditioning where it's, caused people to go inward and think predominantly of themselves without a thought for others. It's also because of the economic destruction that has happened in 2008. It's now been happening again in 2012, 2013. All these little orchestrated financial bubbles that continue to redistribute the wealth of the middle class to the upper classes. Because of all these things. Even Boston, where fear was also incorporated into the whole package. But what down in Boston went down the way it did with the martial law because people were in such mass proportions are still stuck in that survival mode. And when you combine survival mode with fear mode, what do you get? A bunch of people acting in unrational ways. Irrational thought processes. I'd also suggest that we've been bombarded by fear for so long that a lot of people they can't look at the wider angle view of how a particular bill or the actions of a particular police group in an area hold some larger consequences for the nation as a whole. If you look at things and you look at like the ones behind stand your ground laws, for example, okay, those stand your ground laws didn't roll out nationwide, okay, and this is the controller's normal way of doing things, okay. They will take something and they will dry run test it in remote locations. Now, I'm not saying remote as in little known or as in little populated. I'm saying remote because through the control of media, they control who knows about what's going on. So while they're, playing their little games over in Arizona or California or down in Texas, people in New York, Georgia, Florida may not even have a damn clue about what's going on. And it's designed that way. Okay? They test this stuff, whatever it is, whether it's a bill, whether it's, a false flag situation, they'll test it off in remote areas like that. And then they gauge the public response. Once they gauge a public response, they may end up rolling it out in a couple other areas in different zones of the United States because of, the different ethnic boundaries that exist in order to try to ensure that they're going to get similar reaction in all areas. And if they do, then what eventually we find happening is a nationwide rollout. Okay? And that's how this stuff works. The thing of it is, continuing to be a self-centered asshat, you're playing into the conditioning. And I understand the importance of needing to be able to care for yourself, but people on these lines really need to learn to multitask because it is so critical at this point in time and it is so essential. Okay? You got to concentrate on self because you got to be able to take care of self, but because of the games that they're playing and their modus operandi, we've got to start forcing ourselves to be aware of the larger picture. You know, okay, well, this is coming down here. All right, and if I just roll over on this situation, how might they use that in order to roll it out nationwide to where it's not only going to affect me, but it's going to affect the entire nation. It's going to affect my kids. It's going to affect my grandkids. You get the picture, okay? It is essential that people get beyond this, all right? Because standing by yourself and taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to defend yourself against this if you're by yourself. And the radical Talmudists behind this, they know this. They are extensively voiced when it comes to the whole psychology of things and the way that people operate. They spend millions and billions of dollars on this research in order to know just the right buttons to try to push. And a large portion of the population is playing into it. And we need to stop. Because if we do not stop, we are going to be a bunch of individuals standing around trying to protect ourselves when the singular voice of our own self is not going to fix the issue. We got to move beyond this. We got to move beyond this paralysis. We got to move beyond this fear that keeps us drawn inward. This suspicion that causes us to, through different conditioning, to be leery of our neighbor, or be leery of that, person down the block, or that person 3 blocks away walking towards us because they have a different skin color, or because they're wearing a turban. Or as they get close to us, we hear them talking, and we hear a different accent. These are all things that they have played the mental manipulation game against us to bring us to where we're at. This is orchestrated. And if you can't look at the simple fact of the banking and the way that that's happened, and the way that it's been allowed to happen, what it's created, and the fact that absolutely zero CEOs or even stockholders have been held accountable for what's been done. If you can't look at that and realize the orchestration involved in this, and if you cannot look at that in and of itself and realize there is something very large in control, you're never going to figure it out. It's not conspiracy theory, people. It's fact. There is no excuse, none, no acceptable excuse as to why large majority of middle class and the rest of our population has been robbed financially by banks. There is no justification for that. There is no excuse. And there is further no excuse to suggest that absolutely zero, nobody has been held accountable for it, when it is the actions of people that created this. It's time you get past the conditioning. It is time for you to stop this finger-pointing bullshit conspiracy theory. It's not conspiracy. It's events that are fact. It's things that have been done. It has been actions that have been calculated in order to get a desired response. And if we don't wake up soon in large enough majorities, if we do not put our differences aside and continue being self-centered asshats, we are never going to band together in large enough numbers to effectively push back against this and take control back from those who have it now. It took them decades to get to where they're at now. And we're not going to get out of this overnight. But if we don't take the first steps to start this, we're never going to get out of it. And as I've said in other videos, we're all being screwed in one way or another. It's time to stop with the finger pointing bullshit. That ignorance and that blaming one another is what the controllers count on. We've been doing this stupid shit for decades. And as the result, what has changed? It's time to stop being a self-centered asshat. It's time to realize how each of our own actions create ripple effects and how those actions end up affecting others. And at the same time realizing how our inaction creates ripple effects as well. It's time to wake up. It's time to put a stop to this. And as a nation of pissed off people pointing fingers at the roots instead of one another, we can have that change. But not while we're fighting amongst ourselves. Stop being a self-centered asshat. Think about it.